So I do a thing called the wheel, and I have sort of 5, I called it the wheel, it doesn't have an official name, but it's sort of 5 or 6 primary sources, and they're something quite accessible, quite immediate, something that, you know, speaks to the kind of themes of the week, and we have a question, and then each group of students will work on it for like 5 minutes. They'll have a particular coloured pen and they have to annotate it, and then it all rotates. So it moves around every kind of 5 minutes, which means, of course, every time the next group adds to kind of annotations, it means that it'll get a little bit more complex because the easier stuff will have been knocked off by the previous group, and it'll get kind of like deeper and deeper and deeper, but everyone will have worked with every kind of set of source by the time you get to the end, which is dynamic, and it's something you miss out on a little bit of depth, but you get a fair amount of breadth. But it also means that talking about kind of engaging types of primary sources for students, things that are accessible in sort of short periods of time, because they sometimes don't want to they spend 45 minutes on a single very long piece of text. They want something that feels kind of immediate and urgent. There's benefits and limitations to that, but yes, so that was something that we talked about a bit. And also we talked about the kind of connections between librarians and kind of academics and some of the difficulties of sort of building those connections.
Yes, we do a nice session where we work with the students, so it's a sciencey area, but they're fine arts students. They come and look at primary sources that are marine data. But the lecture's moved on now, and the new lecturer doesn't seem to want to engage with it, but I know how well it's run before, and trying to get this person to understand that. But I'm also not the librarian for that area. I manage the archives. So it's just trying to get them all connected up at the right time. Otherwise it's going to be too late, and I won't be able to get the room and things like that. So, cool.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I think it's, you know, something that loads of people face in terms of like that communication between departments and people not quite being all on the same page and trying to kind of funnel it down in the right way so that it gets there in time. That wheel thing sounds amazing.
Yeah.
What level are those students today?
I do it all of them. Like, it works quite well everywhere, and quite often early in a unit to kind of, again, build confidence, because like we were saying, like, barriers, so they don't have time to panic.
Yeah.
They don't have time to think themselves out of, oh, I don't really know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Just chuck them in and make them listen to Donna Summer and think about it, or, you know, like, whatever thing it is, and actually they kind of, there is accessibility issues with that. You have to be a little bit careful about what you set, because obviously they only have a couple of minutes to kind of work through, but actually it can start to break down some of those barriers a little bit. So not necessarily that I think it's the best activity ever, but I think types of primary source that can work with teaching things like that to make it kind of accessible, and to, like I said, that curiosity and that passion, but also the confidence ways of building that too.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone have anything they want to add to that? Silence. Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think it's come up in lots of conversations about the barriers that people face, students face. I did history as my undergrad, graduated in 2017, and I was one of those like middle of the road history students, didn't think that special collections was for me. I was scared of going in, and it took my tutor, who basically took us into special collections and got those objects out for us, for me to think, oh, okay, maybe I can dip my toe in. Exactly, yeah. Let's have a think about working together as colleagues then. Is there anything that anyone does, library and faculty together, to kind of bridge those gaps and make it easier? Any kind of initiatives, I suppose?
We've got
ways in which that hadn't been happening and
This is something we really struggle with at SOAS. I mean, so Fazana's talked a lot about what we do in terms of one-to-ones and doing some introductory sessions to sources. We were in a position where we've always had particular academics who know about us and know where we are and know what we've got, who would proactively come to us and actually, we want to do a session with you, we'll do this. And we found that over the last few years we've lost a lot of those academics for different reasons. So now we're in a position where we kind of need to get that back, but there's a question mark over how proactive we should and can be. Probably we need to be more proactive. It's trying to go out and make them aware of who we are and what we have, to sort of plant that seed in their minds that there is material that they could use, or there is content that perhaps we can contribute to their sessions. It's hard to do that really. What's the mechanism? We don't have a dedicated person. we have our own librarians, but we don't have a dedicated. In Birmingham, it sounds like there's quite a good setup. You have you're a liaison.
Yeah,
Officer,
and
but-
engagement. So we used to be subject based, and then we switched to functional.
Okay.
So my job now is more about kind of brokering those conversations.
Yeah.
So it's my
Yeah.
job to kind of draw them in.
That's what we need. We need a dedicated. We have lots of different people who are trying to do it. We've not very much resource, quite frankly, so we don't really have the time to do that in a concentrated, focused way. And it sounds like maybe you need that post or post. Actually, think about the different ways in which you can engage the academics and bring them to you, because we're very reactive. We're not very proactive at present. So it's quite interesting to hear about other people's models and how that
I
actually
mean, for
works.
instance, we contact all new starters as well to introduce ourselves. We have like a set mailing that goes out within a month of them arriving to, giving our email address and encouraging a meeting to try and kind of, right from the start, so they're not sort of wondering who to contact, just to get things out there. And I think particularly with engagement, because often I won't actually be doing the thing, but I will be pointing to where they go, so they only need to remember me, which I think makes things quite
Yeah, that sounds really nice.
Can I just say, actually, we've been through 2 very heavy restructures, don't think about it now. But the second restructure, I have to give Oliver credit. So Oliver was the director of the library, he left about a month ago. He actually created a post which was research librarian, and the idea was to work with special collections and academics. Now, I actually got it, I knew what he was doing, and a lot of my colleagues were against it because they saw it as it's part of our job and you're going to just be filtering out. But it reminds me, I should try to look up that job description, but that was a role to bridge that gap
Yeah.
and really promote the resources, primary sources, and that would have been public engagement.
Maybe a new
It's something worth reconsidering, because I think you do need that. Because I think also I said it's patchy. I would mind actually doing a report to see how much are primary sources embedded and used across the school in the different school, the departments. Because I told you I know a bit here and there, but we should audit it. Yeah, we need to. And we have research knowledge exchange whole department that we need, and they've also just employed someone. She's an internal. She's director of knowledge exchange, and said to me, "Rosanna, looking forward to working with you." I think, okay, well, what are we going to do? So this is something we should be looking at. Yeah. You're going to leave it to me now, aren't you? No, I would.
I'd be involved.
I'd take it forward. Definitely.
We were talking about the first question about thinking about what's the hook, because some people will be interested in one topic, others in completely different. And then we were thinking about with question 2, it's kind of the same thing. What's the hook for the tutor, for the academic? Because some of them just don't come anywhere near us.
Yeah.
And if they don't come in, they're not telling their students to come in. Others are brilliant, so there's that. Well, how do you figure out what the hook is?
Yes.
And you don't have time to go chat to all of them if we have capacity or whatever. But I was thinking of doing an open day, like event, for invite all the various academics from different relevant schools, and then get some material out and go, did you know this is what we've got? Maybe that will spark something. And then one of the other things we did, we had a student from the School of History as an intern for sort of 6 months at a time, and it gave them some skills and background skills in behind the scenes. But then we also used them to engage with their peers, and we were like hoping, well, they don't listen to our social media, maybe they'll listen to her or him, and that actually helped. But I think it's literally just throw everything at it and hope something sticks.
Yeah.
The open day idea sounds.
Hope so.
Something's running around in my brain.
Lisa, did you want to add something? And then we'll have to call it a day, I'm
Yeah,
afraid, after that.
one of the things that we've been doing is using institutional archives, so which it kind of with a sense of promoting the heritage and institutional understanding and kind of community building. We do it on our 60s and our 80s course in it, and so there's stuff on the Anti-Apartheid Society, there's stuff around feminism, there's stuff around rent strikes, which is quite interesting at the moment. And we originally did it as a teaching packet an occupation and actually realise that these are brilliant resources. So whether that's the architectural designs, if you're thinking about space, and so that there's ways of building it into kind of maybe not just teaching activities, but kind of we are all a community, let's think about our heritage, and using that with our students gave them a completely different understanding of what their relationship with the institution was.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks, Lucy. I'm afraid we're out of time on this discussion, so we're going to move on to our next